The chamber of the Galactic Council had been designed to intimidate. It was not built for comfort, nor for diplomacy, nor even for unity. It was built to remind every species that sat within it that they were small pieces in something vast, ancient, and unforgiving. 12 species filled the circular hall, each occupying their designated segment of the massive ring. Some breathed through gills that shimmered in filtered water columns. Others exhaled chemical vapors that were quietly siphoned away by invisible fields. A few did not breathe at all, their bodies sustained by internal reactors or slow, deliberate biological processes that had outlived entire civilizations. Normally, the chamber was never quiet. There was always the low murmur of translators adjusting tones, the clicking of mandibles, the subtle hum of thought-casting frequencies. Even silence had a texture here. But now there was nothing. No sound. No movement. Only the echo of a single sentence that had just been spoken. "You assaulted Earth." Ambassador Kafir of the Zephyrian Empire remained standing, his blue-scaled form rigid, one trembling hand clutching a data pad so tightly that faint stress fractures had begun to spider across its surface. His eyes did not move. They remained fixed on the opposite side of the chamber. On the hegemony delegation. Every gaze in the hall followed his. Ambassador Velter sat at the center of his delegation, taller than most, his gray skin stretched tight over a frame built for command rather than comfort. His species had ruled through force for centuries. Entire systems had fallen silent at the arrival of their fleets. Now, for the first time in recorded council history, he looked uncertain. "That is impossible," came the voice of council leader Jarn. Her form shifted at the center dais, long tendrils curling and uncurling in agitation as she leaned forward. Her species did not display emotion easily, but the subtle tightening of her limbs betrayed something dangerously close to alarm. "Earth," she continued carefully, "is protected under the Terran Accords. No contact is permitted. No interference. No intervention. That agreement has held for 5 decades. Kafir's scales darkened. 3 months ago, he said, each word precise, controlled, the hegemony launched a pacification fleet toward the Sol system. 200 warships. The silence shattered. Voices erupted in a dozen languages at once. Some delegates rose from their positions. Others flared threat displays or activated defensive fields out of instinct rather than intent. Translation systems strained to keep up, overlapping phrases and fragments of outrage bleeding into one another. Violation. Unacceptable. Sanction this immediately. Order. Jarn's voice thundered through the chamber, amplified by systems designed to override even the loudest species present. Gradually, the chaos collapsed back into silence. Her tendrils settled, though they did not relax. "Ambassador Velter," she said, her tone no longer neutral, "you will explain this immediately." All eyes returned to him. Velter did not stand. He remained seated, forearms crossed, posture defensive but deliberate. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of a species that had never needed permission to act. "The hegemony recognizes no authority over its military decisions," he said coldly. "If we choose to expand our territory, that is our right." A ripple of anger moved through the chamber. "You have laws," said Ambassador Kirath of the Stellar Confederation, her silver skin catching the chamber light as she leaned forward. "You have treaties. The Terran Accords were agreed upon by every major power present. Earth was declared off-limits." "Those accords were signed by fools," Velter replied without hesitation. "Earth is a primitive world. Resource-rich. Strategically insignificant in terms of resistance. Its inhabitants possess no meaningful spacefaring capability. No shields. No energy weapons. No unified defense." Kafir's grip tightened on his datapad. "You speak in past tense," he said quietly. "That was when the chamber truly went silent. Not the strained silence of earlier. A deeper one. Heavier. Dangerous." Velter's eyes flickered, just for a moment. "The fleet completed its mission," he said. "There was no conviction in it. No certainty. Just a statement, delivered because it had to be." "Then where are your ships?" The question came from Ambassador Wexel of the Tristar Alliance, his insectoid form clicking softly as he leaned forward, multiple eyes narrowing with calculated focus. "Where are your reports?" Wexel continued. Your confirmation signals. Your colonial infrastructure logs. Your victory broadcasts. Velter's skin darkened slightly. Communications across such distances take time, he said. The fleet is likely occupied establishing control over the native population. Kiratha's expression did not change. Your standard conquest protocol requires a full report within 2 weeks, she said. It has been 3 months. The situation is complex. Kafir moved then. He stepped forward into the center projection field and activated his datapad. A holographic display flared to life above the table, filling the chamber with shifting lines of light. Star charts. Fleet trajectories. Communication logs. This, Kafir said, his voice cutting clean through the stillness, is Zephyrian intelligence data. The projection zoomed inward. A cluster of signals moved in formation. 200 hegemony warships, their signatures unmistakable. They departed from your military staging point, Kafir continued. Their trajectory was direct. No deviation. No interference. The projection shifted again. Now it showed the outer edge of the Sol system. The last recorded positions of the fleet. They entered human space, Kafir said. He paused. And for the first time since he had begun speaking, there was something like hesitation in his voice. After that, the hologram froze. No signals. No movement. No transmissions. Nothing. There is nothing. The chamber did not erupt this time. It didn't move. It didn't breathe. It simply absorbed. Perhaps came a slow, measured voice from the shadows. Their communication systems failed. All eyes turned to Ambassador Nexvera of the Void Walkers. She rarely spoke, which meant that when she did, it mattered. All of them. Kafir snapped, his composure fracturing for the first time. 200 ships. Every array. Every relay. Every backup system. Simultaneously. Jarn's tendrils rose again, slower this time, more deliberate. She had lived through centuries of political maneuvering. She recognized patterns. And this one was wrong. Ambassador Velter, she said quietly, I am ordering a full investigation. A council fleet will be dispatched too. No. The word struck like a physical force. Velter was on his feet now. His forearms were spread wide, posture no longer defensive but desperate. No council vessels will enter the Sol system, he said. The reaction was immediate. On what authority? Kirath demanded. If it is your territory, Wexel added, mandibles clicking sharply, then you should welcome verification. Velter's skin had gone darker now. Almost black. The native population carries unknown biological risks, he said. The fleet is operating under quarantine protocols. A low, insect-like chitter echoed from Wexel. The closest his species came to laughter. Diseases, he said. Your empire has conquered 47 worlds. Your medical capabilities are unmatched. You neutralize unknown pathogens within hours. This is different. How? Jarn asked. For a moment, Velter said nothing. The chamber waited. Every species present, every mind, every expectation, held in place. When he finally spoke, his voice was no longer that of a conqueror. It was quieter, thinner. We don't know. The words settled over the chamber like gravity. Heavy. Unavoidable. Kafir exhaled slowly. You don't know, he repeated, softer now, more dangerous. Because they are gone, aren't they? No one moved. Your fleet, Kafir continued. Your soldiers. Your ships. He took a step closer. Something happened to them. That is impossible, Velter said. But the conviction was gone. Completely gone. Humans are primitive, he insisted, but now it sounded like something he was trying to convince himself of. They have no fleet. No advanced weapons. Their technology is centuries behind ours. Kirath did not look away from him. Then where are your ships? No one answered Kiratha's question. Not immediately. Because the moment it was asked, something subtle shifted in the chamber. It was no longer a debate. No longer a political dispute. It was a problem. And worse than that, it was a problem no one could explain. The hologram above the council table remained frozen, the last known positions of the hegemony fleet glowing faintly against the vast emptiness of the Sol system. 200 warships, each capable of subjugating entire civilizations, reduced to a cluster of fading signals that simply stopped. No wreckage, no distress beacons, no final transmissions. Just absence. Jarn slowly lowered her tendrils, folding them inward as she studied the projection. Her mind moved through possibilities with the precision of someone who had survived 3 centuries of power struggles. "Chief Scanner Yiklin," she said at last, her voice controlled once more, "present the latest long-range sensor data." A figure rose from the peripheral stations, its form a shifting mass of eye stalks and articulated limbs, each one focused on a different data stream. Yiklin's species processed information in parallel, making them uniquely suited for deep space analysis. "The Sol system has been under continuous observation since the emergency session began," Yiklin said, multiple voices harmonizing into a single translated output. "Our scans confirm the presence of a standard G-type star, 8 primary planetary bodies, and multiple asteroid fields consistent with previous surveys." The hologram shifted. Now it displayed the full system. Normal. Unchanged. "There are no detectable anomalies," Yiklin continued. "No large-scale energy signatures. No active fleet formations. No orbital construction consistent with colonization. No debris fields indicative of large-scale conflict." Kirath leaned forward slightly. "No debris?" she asked. "None," Yiklin confirmed. "That's not possible," Wexel clicked sharply. 200 warships do not simply vanish without residue. Even total annihilation leaves trace particles, radiation scars, gravitational disturbances, something. "Agreed," Kafir said quietly. "Yet our scans show nothing." The chamber grew colder. Not physically, but perceptually. Because now the problem had evolved. It was no longer just that the fleet was missing. It was that the evidence of its destruction was missing too. "Perhaps," Nexvera said from her position in the shadows, "there was no destruction." All attention turned to her again. Her dark eyes reflected the holographic system map, unreadable. "Clarify," John said. Nexvera tilted her head slightly. "If the fleet was not destroyed," she said, "then it was removed." The word lingered. Removed. As if 200 warships were objects that could be picked up and taken away. "That is absurd," Velter snapped, though the sharpness of his tone felt forced now. "No known technology is capable of displacing a fleet of that size without leaving measurable distortions." "Your knowledge," Nexvera replied calmly, "is not the limit of possibility." Silence followed. Uncomfortable. Unsettling. Kafir gestured to the hologram again, zooming into the inner planets. 3 months, he said. "If the hegemony had successfully conquered Earth, we would see evidence. Orbital platforms. Resource extraction systems. Population control infrastructure." The projection highlighted Earth. Blue. Green. Peaceful. Untouched. "Instead," Kafir continued, "we see nothing." Kiratha's eyes narrowed. "Which leaves us with 2 possibilities," she said. "Either the hegemony fleet failed." She paused. Or it succeeded, and something prevented them from reporting that success. Neither option felt acceptable. Wexel's mandibles clicked slowly, thoughtfully. "There is a 3rd possibility," he said. Every eye turned toward him. "That the fleet encountered resistance beyond its expectations." Velter's head snapped toward him. "Impossible," he said immediately. "Human military capability is negligible. Their most advanced weapons are primitive nuclear devices. Their spacecraft cannot sustain long-term operations beyond their own atmosphere." "That data is 15 years old," Kirath said. 15 years is insufficient for such advancement," Velter countered. "Technological progression at that scale requires centuries." "Unless," Nexvera murmured, "the baseline assumptions were incorrect." Velter did not respond. Because for the first time, he could not. Jarn watched the exchange carefully, her thoughts aligning into a single, unavoidable conclusion. "We are operating on incomplete information," she said. Assumptions about human capability may no longer be valid. Or never were, Kafir added. That landed harder than anyone expected, because it implied something far more dangerous than rapid advancement. It implied deception. Yiklin adjusted the projection again, isolating Earth's orbital space. Additional detail, the scanner said. There are objects present within the system that match expected classifications of artificial satellites. However, Jarn prompted. They are not behaving consistently with passive communication platforms. The chamber stilled again. In what way? Kirath asked. Yiklin hesitated, its eye stalks shifting focus rapidly. Their positions fluctuate, it said. Not within standard orbital mechanics. Minor deviations. Irregular patterns. Define irregular, Kafir said. They do not follow predictable decay or stabilization curves, Yiklin replied. At times, they appear stationary relative to non-inertial reference points. At other times, they exhibit momentary accelerations inconsistent with known propulsion methods. Wexel leaned forward sharply. You're saying they move? Yes. Under power? Unknown. A quiet tension spread through the chamber. Velter's voice cut through it, harsher now. Primitive satellites do not maneuver, he said. Humans do not possess propulsion systems capable of sustained orbital repositioning at that scale. Then perhaps, Nexvera said softly, they are not primitive satellites. No one laughed. No one dismissed it. Because at this point, dismissal required certainty. And certainty had already been stripped away. Kafir zoomed the projection further, isolating a cluster of these objects. Can you determine their function? He asked. Yiklin paused. Then, no. That answer landed heavier than any other. Because Yiklin species did not fail at analysis. If they said they did not know, then it was something beyond known frameworks. Jarn's tendrils tightened again. Ambassador Velter, she said, turning toward him slowly, your fleet entered a system that now contains unidentified moving objects behaving outside known physics, and your forces have not reported back in 3 months. Velter said nothing. His skin had darkened further, the color spreading unevenly across his form. You will provide every detail of your mission parameters, Jarn continued. Fleet composition, tactical objectives, contingency protocols. There is nothing more to provide, Velter said, but his voice lacked force now. Then explain this, Kirath said, gesturing sharply at the projection. Explain why a primitive world is surrounded by objects your fleet did not report encountering. They may not have detected them, Velter said. 200 warships failed to detect orbital assets. Wexel snapped. That is incompetence on a scale your empire has never demonstrated. They were not there, Velter insisted. Kafir's eyes hardened. Then they are there now. Silence. Again. But this time it was different. Because now the implication was unavoidable. Something had changed in the Sol system. Either just before the fleet arrived, or immediately after. Jarn made her decision. I am authorizing a probe mission, she said. Unmanned vessels equipped with advanced stealth and sensor arrays will be dispatched immediately. They will approach the Sol system and gather direct data. No, Velter said again, but there was no authority left in it. The hegemony forfeited its right to objection when it violated the Accords, Jarn replied coldly. Kirath nodded once. Agreed. Wexel clicked in affirmation. Nexvera said nothing, but her gaze remained fixed on Earth, as if she were trying to see something beyond the data. The decision was made. Orders were transmitted. Within hours, 3 probe vessels would begin their journey toward the Sol system. 2 weeks to arrival. 2 weeks of waiting. 2 weeks of not knowing. As the chamber slowly emptied, conversations were quiet now. Measured. Uneasy. The arrogance that had filled the room at the beginning of the session was gone, replaced by something far less comfortable. Doubt. Velter remained behind. Alone. He stared at the projection long after the others had left. At the blue planet. At the empty space where his fleet should have been. At the silent, unmoving void that somehow felt occupied. 17 messages. He had sent 17 messages to the Fleet Command channel, each one more urgent than the last, each one unanswered. He activated the channel again. One final attempt. "This is Ambassador Velta," he said, his voice low. "Fleet Command, respond." The transmission carried across light years. Into the Sol system. Into silence. Nothing came back. For a long moment, he stood there, listening, waiting. Then, slowly, something he had refused to consider began to surface. A thought. Small at first. Then growing. Unwelcome. Unacceptable. And yet, it would not leave. What if the fleet had not failed because humans were weak? What if they had failed because humans were not? The probes launched 6 hours later. 3 vessels, each no larger than a civilian transport, stripped of all unnecessary mass and wrapped in stealth systems that bent light, heat, and signal into statistical invisibility. They carried the most advanced sensor arrays the Council possessed, along with redundant data cores designed to transmit information across interstellar distances even under catastrophic failure. They were not warships. They were eyes. And for the first time in decades, the Galactic Council realized it might be looking into something it did not understand. The chamber reconvened the following cycle. Attendance was mandatory. No delegation was absent. Even species that avoided direct participation had sent representatives, their avatars flickering into existence around the circular table, their attention fixed on the central projection. Jarn did not waste time. "The probe mission is underway," she said. "Estimated arrival in the Sol system, 14 standard days. Until then, we will examine all available historical data regarding Earth, the Terran Accords, and prior contact events." A quiet ripple moved through the chamber. Historical review was not routine. It was something reserved for crises. Kafir stepped forward once more, activating a secondary projection. This one was older, less precise. Fragments of archived records layered over one another, some incomplete, others deliberately restricted. "The Terran Accords," he began, "were ratified 50 standard years ago. Officially, they were established to protect a developing species from premature exposure to galactic civilization." "That is correct," Kirath said. "Earth was classified as pre-FTL. Cultural contamination risk was deemed high." "That is the official record," Kafir replied. He paused, then adjusted the display. New data appeared. Voting logs. Attendance records. Authorization chains. "These are the original council votes," he said. "Declassified 30 minutes ago under emergency protocol." Jarn's tendrils shifted slightly. "Proceed." Kafir highlighted specific entries. "The Accords did not pass unanimously," he said. "In fact, they passed by the narrowest margin in recorded council history." That drew attention. "Which species opposed them?" Wexel asked. Kafir adjusted the filter. "Mostly younger civilizations. Expansionist blocs. Trade coalitions. Species with active colonial interests." "That is expected," Kirath said. "Restricting access to a resource-rich system would be unpopular." "Yes," Kafir said. Then he changed the display again. "These," he continued, "are the species that supported the Accords most strongly." The chamber leaned in. Names appeared. Ancient names. Heavy names. The Eternal Dominion. The Crystal Hierophants. The Machine Collective. Civilizations that had existed for thousands of years. Civilizations that did not fear easily. "They pushed for isolation," Kafir said quietly. "Not passive support. Active enforcement. They argued that Earth must remain untouched under any circumstances." Wexel's mandibles clicked slowly. "That is unusual." Kirath frowned. "The Dominion was never known for restraint," she said. "They annexed entire sectors during their expansion period." "Exactly," Kafir replied. The implication settled slowly. Jarn's voice cut through it. "What justification did they provide at the time?" Kafir hesitated. "None that were recorded." Silence. Nexvera spoke. "They had justification," she said. Her voice was soft, but it carried They simply chose not to share it. All eyes turned to her. "You are suggesting," Kiroth said carefully, "that the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy enforce the isolation of a primitive world, for reasons they refuse to explain." "Yes." "That is speculation," Velter snapped, though his voice lacked its former strength. Nexvera did not look at him. "It is pattern recognition," she said. Kafir shifted the display again. "Additional data," he said, cross-referencing historical exploration logs. Fragments of ancient missions appeared. Survey vessels. Long-range scouts. First contact attempts. Most were routine. Standard. Forgettable. Until. These entries, Kafir said, isolating a cluster of older logs. All relate to early exploration of the Sol system. Dates range from 300 to 400 years ago. Kiroth leaned forward. "Before the Accords." "Yes." "What do they show?" Kafir hesitated again. "Gaps. Gaps. Missing reports. Incomplete transmissions. Entire missions listed as unresolved." Wexel's posture stiffened. "How many?" 17 confirmed expeditions entered the Sol system during that period, Kafir said. Only 9 returned with complete data. The chamber went still. "What happened to the others?" Jarn asked. "No official record exists." "That is impossible," Kiroth said. "The Council archives have been edited before," Nexvera interrupted. No one argued that, because everyone knew it was true. The Machine Collective had once purged entire centuries of data during a conflict. The Dominion had rewritten territorial claims across multiple star charts. History, in the Council, was not always reliable. Kafir brought up another layer. "Recovered fragments from one of the incomplete missions," he said. "Heavily corrupted. Translation incomplete." The chamber darkened slightly as the fragment played. Static. Distortion. Then a voice. Panicked. Unstable. Not alone. Not primitive, they. The recording cut. Silence returned. No one spoke for several seconds. Then Wexel said quietly, "That could mean anything." "Yes," Kafir said. "But it does not mean nothing." Jarn turned slowly toward Velter. "Ambassador," she said, "was your fleet provided with any of this historical data prior to their deployment?" "No," Velter said immediately. "There was no need. Humans are a low-tier species. Their threat classification is negligible." "Based on what?" Kiroth asked. "Standard survey data." "From when?" Velter paused. 15 years ago." Nexvera's gaze sharpened slightly. 15 years, she repeated. "And no further observations since." "That is standard protocol for protected worlds," Velter said. "Protected," Nexvera echoed. The word sounded different now. Less like a label. More like a warning. Kafir deactivated the corrupted recording. "The pattern is clear," he said. "Ancient civilizations enforced isolation. Early expeditions encountered anomalies. Data was lost, altered, or suppressed. And now," Kiroth said slowly, "a modern fleet has entered the same system and vanished. No one needed to connect the pieces. They were already aligned." Jarn's tendrils moved again, slower this time. "Deliberate." "Ambassador Nexvera," she said, "state your conclusion." The chamber focused entirely on her. Nexvera did not rush. She rarely did. When she finally spoke, her voice was calm, measured, cold. "The Terran Accords were not created to protect humans from the galaxy," she said. A pause. Long enough for the meaning to settle. "They were created," she continued, "because certain species believed the galaxy needed protection from humans." The reaction was immediate. Disbelief. Rejection. Fear. "That is absurd," Velter said, "but it came out weaker than he intended." "Is it?" Nexvera asked. She gestured to the projection. "To the missing fleets. To the corrupted records. To the silent system. 17 expeditions," she said. "Incomplete data. Ancient powers enforcing isolation without explanation. A modern fleet vanishing without trace." She tilted her head slightly. And we still insist that humans are primitive. Kirath said nothing. Wexel said nothing. Even Kafir remained silent. Because for the first time, no one could confidently say otherwise. Jarn exhaled slowly. A decision was forming. But it was not one she wanted to make. Until the probe's return, she said, we operate under uncertainty. Her gaze moved across the chamber, lingering on each representative. However, she added, we will no longer assume that Earth is harmless. That was the shift. Subtle, but irreversible. Earth was no longer a protected curiosity. It was now a variable, a question, a potential threat. The chamber adjourned soon after. But no one left with certainty, only with thoughts. Heavy ones. Uncomfortable ones. Velter did not return to his quarters immediately. He remained in the empty chamber, staring at the darkened projection field. At nothing. At everything. His brother's fleet had been among those ships. Admiral Kuxer, commanding officer. Undefeated in 12 campaigns. Gone. Without a trace. Without a signal. Without a final message. Velter clenched his forearms tightly. His species did not fear easily. They did not question their superiority. They did not doubt their dominance. But now, a thought had taken root. And no matter how hard he tried, he could not remove it. If the ancient powers had been right, if the Accords had been a warning, then what had the hegemony just done? Not a conquest. Not an expansion. Not a victory. Something else. Something far worse. Something irreversible. He looked toward the distant stars, where the Sol system lay hidden beyond perception. And for the first time in his life, he wondered if they had not attacked a primitive world at all, but had instead knocked on the door of something that had been deliberately left alone. The probes traveled in silence. They did not broadcast. They did not emit heat signatures beyond background noise. They did not exist, at least not in any way conventional sensors could detect. That was the design. Each vessel carried layered stealth systems refined over centuries, calibrated to slip through hostile territories unnoticed. They bent light, masked radiation, and mimicked the random drift of inert debris. If anything in the galaxy could observe the Sol system without being seen, it was these. And yet, from the moment they crossed into the outer boundary of the system, something felt wrong. The first anomaly was subtle. A delay. Probe 1 transmitted its initial scan of the Kuiper Belt, raw data, unprocessed, as per protocol. The transmission should have reached the Council within seconds of entry. It arrived 12 minutes late. No interference was detected. No distortion. Just delay. Explain that, Jarn said, her voice cutting through the quiet observation chamber where the Council had gathered to monitor the incoming data stream. Yiklin's eye stalks flickered rapidly as it processed the signal. There is no measurable obstruction, it said. Signal integrity is intact. Transmission pathway is clear. Then why the delay? No known cause. The chamber grew still. Continue observation, Jarn said. They did. The probes advanced deeper. Probe 2 entered the region between Neptune and Uranus. Its sensors swept across empty space, cataloging asteroid clusters and dust fields. Everything appeared normal. Until it didn't. Unidentified objects detected, Yiklin said suddenly. The projection shifted, zooming into a cluster of faint signatures. They are small, Yiklin continued. Mass consistent with artificial constructs. Approximately 300 units in this sector alone. Kirath leaned forward. Classification. Unknown. Movement. Yiklin hesitated. Irregular. The objects drifted, then stopped, then adjusted position by small increments that did not match gravitational influence. No propulsion signatures. No visible engines. Just movement. Are they aware of the probes? Kafir asked. No indication of detection, Yiklin replied. Velter said nothing. He simply watched. His skin had not returned to its normal tone since the first session. It remained dark, uneven, as if his body no longer knew how to present confidence. "Continue," Jarn said. The probes obeyed. They slipped past the outer planets, their sensors widening, gathering more data, more anomalies. The closer they moved toward the inner system, the more objects appeared. Hundreds became thousands. Clusters formed patterns. Patterns formed networks. And the networks, they shifted. Not randomly, not chaotically, but with intent. "Mapping indicates coordinated positioning," Yiklin said. "These objects are not independent. They are part of a larger system." "A defense grid," Kiroth whispered. No one contradicted her, because the conclusion was obvious. The only question was, why had no one seen it before? Probe 3 approached the asteroid belt. Its sensors pulsed, scanning through the dense field of rock and debris. At first, everything appeared consistent with previous surveys. Then the readings began to change. "Energy signatures detected," Yiklin said. "From where?" Jarn asked. "Multiple sources, embedded within the asteroid field." The projection zoomed in. What had once appeared to be inert rock now revealed something else. Angular lines. Geometric patterns. Surfaces too smooth. Too deliberate. "They are not asteroids," Kafir said slowly. "No," Yiklin confirmed. "They are constructs. Hidden. Camouflaged. Waiting." Velter's voice finally broke his silence. "That is impossible," he said, but there was no strength behind it. "Your fleet would have detected them." Yiklin did not respond immediately. When it did, its voice carried something unfamiliar. "Uncertainty. Reanalyzing hegemony sensor protocols," it said. "Comparing against observed stealth characteristics." A pause. Then, "These constructs are designed to appear as natural objects across all standard detection spectra." Karotha's expression hardened. "You're saying they were invisible to the fleet?" "Yes." The chamber went cold. Because now the pattern was no longer theoretical. It was tactical. The probes continued. They moved inward, past Mars, toward the orbit of Earth itself. And that was when everything changed. "Contact," Yiklin said. The word froze the room. "Define contact," Jarn said immediately. Probe 1's feed shifted. A new signal had appeared. Clear. Strong. Precise. Not interference. Not noise. A transmission. "It is not originating from the probes," Yiklin said. "Then from where?" A pause. Then, "From everywhere." The signal filled every channel simultaneously. Every frequency. Every bandwidth. It did not disrupt the probes. It did not damage them. It simply occupied space. Like a voice that had always been there, waiting to be heard. "Translate," Jarn ordered. Yiklin hesitated. "It is already in galactic standard." The chamber stilled. "Play it," Kafir said quietly. For a fraction of a second. Nothing happened. Then the voice came. Calm. Clear. Perfectly structured. "You are not authorized to be here." No distortion. No aggression. Just certainty. Kiroth felt something tighten in her chest. "Identify source," she said sharply. "Unable," Yiklin replied. "Signal origin is non-localized. It does not correspond to a single transmission point." "Respond," Velter said suddenly. "Send identification. Clarify that these are Council probes." "They are not communicating with us," Yiklin interrupted. The realization hit like a physical force. The voice had not come through Council channels. It had come through the probes. Directly. "Repeat transmission," Jarn said. The voice did not repeat. Instead, it changed. "You were warned." Silence followed. Absolute. Heavy. "Warning." Wexel clicked, his mandibles tightening. "What warning?" No answer came. Only the quiet hum of the observation systems. Then, Probe 2 vanished. Not destroyed. Not disabled. Vanished. One moment it was there, its signal stable, its data streaming. The next, nothing. "No debris," Yiklin said immediately. "No energy spike. No residual signature. Probe 3 lasted 3 seconds longer. Then it disappeared as well. Probe 1 remained. Alone. Its sensors spiking wildly as it attempted to process the sudden absence of its counterparts. "Pull it back," John ordered. The command transmitted instantly. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Probe 1 began to turn, its trajectory shifting away from Earth, away from the inner system, away from whatever had just erased 2 vessels without effort. The chamber held its breath. For 1 second. 2, 3. The signal flickered. Stabilized. Then the voice returned. Closer this time. Not louder, but nearer. "You will leave." The probe's feed filled with light. Not an explosion. Not a weapon discharge. Just light. And then nothing. All 3 probes were gone. The chamber did not erupt. It did not react. Because reaction required comprehension. And there was none. Only silence. Deep. Unbroken. Jarn's tendrils had gone still. Completely still. As if even she did not trust herself to move. Kafir stared at the empty projection, his mind trying and failing to construct a model that made sense. Kirath leaned back slowly, her silver skin dimming. Wexel did not move at all. Nexvera's eyes remained fixed on the space where the probes had been. Unblinking. Velter. Velter lowered himself back into his seat. Slowly. Carefully. As if sudden movement might draw attention. No one spoke for a long time. Because the truth had finally arrived. Not in data. Not in theory. But in action. The hegemony fleet had not disappeared without cause. It had entered a system that was not unguarded. Not primitive. Not unaware. It had entered a system that had been watching. Waiting. And when something crossed a boundary, it had responded. Effortlessly. Silently. Completely. Jarn finally spoke. Her voice was quiet, but it carried through the chamber like a verdict. "Earth," she said, "is not under our protection." She paused. Then, "We are under theirs." The emergency beacon was barely detectable. It flickered at the edge of long-range sensors, buried beneath cosmic background noise and radiation drift, its signal so weak it could have been dismissed as interference. It wasn't. Yiklin isolated it within seconds. "Distress transmission detected," the scanner said, its eye stalks locking onto the signal source. "Origin, unidentified craft. Trajectory suggests drift from the Sol vector." The chamber came alive again. Not with noise. With urgency. "Confirm classification," Jarn said. "Analyzing, signal pattern matches hegemony emergency protocols." Every eye turned to Velter. For the first time since the probes vanished, something like hope flickered across his darkened features. "Coordinates," he said immediately. "They are already being transmitted to Rescue Command," Yiklin replied. "Estimated retrieval time, 3 standard days." "Divert the nearest vessel," Jarn ordered. "Full recovery priority. Medical teams standing by." The chamber dimmed as the projection shifted to track the drifting signal. A single point. Small. Fragile. But real. Something had come back. 3 days later, the rescue ship reached it. What they found was not a vessel. Not really. It was what remained of one. An escape pod, its hull scarred and partially melted, surfaces warped as if exposed to energies beyond its structural tolerance. Sections of its outer plating had been cleanly sliced away, not torn or shattered, but removed with precise, surgical cuts. "Docking complete," came the report through the chamber speakers. "Pod integrity critical but stable. Life signs detected." Velter did not wait for permission. He was already moving. By the time the pod was transferred to the medical station aboard the Council complex, he was there, pushing past technicians and guards alike, his focus locked on the sealed chamber where the survivors were being stabilized. "How many?" he demanded. 3, the medical chief replied, her voice calm but strained. "All alive. All conscious. And the rest?" Velter asked. The medical chief hesitated. There were no others. That answer landed harder than any data report. 3 survivors. From 200 warships. Velter did not speak again. He simply moved forward, stopping at the transparent barrier that separated him from the recovery ward. Inside, the survivors lay on separate platforms. Sub-Commander Yakaran. Navigation Officer Telmar. Engineer Dexlock. Names he knew. Faces he recognized. Veterans. Soldiers who had survived campaigns that crushed entire civilizations. No. They did not look like soldiers. Yakaran was curled inward, his body drawn tight, as if trying to occupy less space. His skin had lost its natural tone, faded to a pale, uneven gray. His eyes moved constantly, darting toward corners, shadows, empty space. Telmar lay rigid, her gaze fixed upward, unblinking, as if afraid that closing her eyes would bring something back. Dexlock sat upright, perfectly still. Too still. His breathing was measured. Mechanical. Wrong. What happened to them? Velter asked quietly. The medical chief's eyes did not leave the survivors. They are in severe psychological distress, she said. Acute trauma responses. Their neural patterns indicate prolonged exposure to extreme fear. They are soldiers, Velter said. They have faced combat before. Not like this, the medical chief replied. Velter turned toward her. I need to speak with them. They are not ready. I do not care. Her gaze hardened slightly. I have treated trauma victims for 6 decades, she said. I have seen survivors of planetary annihilations. I have seen species collapse under war. I have never seen anything like this. Velter held her stare. Then, slowly, I need to know what happened to my fleet. There was a long moment of silence. Then the medical chief stepped aside. Briefly, she said, and if they show signs of distress, you stop. Velter did not respond. He was already moving. The barrier opened. The air inside the ward felt different, still, heavy, as if something had followed them back. He approached Yakaran first. Slowly, carefully. Sub-Commander, he said. No response. Yakaran's eyes continued their erratic movement, scanning nothing. It's me, Velter said, lowering his voice. Ambassador Velter. For a moment, nothing. Then Yakaran's gaze locked onto him. Recognition flickered. And with it, terror. His entire body began to shake. They knew, Yakaran whispered. The words were barely audible. What did they know? Velter asked. That we were coming. Velter felt something tighten in his chest. How? Yakaran's breathing quickened. I don't know, he said. We arrived. Everything looked normal. One planet. Basic orbital debris. Primitive satellites. The Admiral said it would be over in hours. Velter leaned closer. What changed? Yakaran's eyes widened. The satellites, he said. They moved. Silence. They weren't communication devices, Yakaran continued, his voice breaking. They were weapons. Hundreds of them. Maybe thousands. Hidden everywhere. Disguised as debris, as rock, as broken machines. His hands trembled violently. They activated the moment we dropped out of faster than light. Velter's voice dropped to a whisper. Our shields. Useless, Yakaran said immediately. Their weapons didn't hit the shields. They passed through them. That was impossible. Physics did not allow that. Technology did not allow that. And yet, Yakaran was not lying. Velter could see it. Feel it. What kind of weapons? He asked. Light, Yakaran said. Beams of light that cut through hulls like they weren't there. Ships split apart before they could even return fire. Across the room, Telmar spoke. Her voice was hollow. They were fast, she said. Too fast. Not like ships. Not like anything we've seen. Velter turned toward her. How many? I don't know, she said. Dozens. Maybe more. They came from everywhere. Behind the planet. From the asteroid belt. From empty space. Her eyes shifted slightly, unfocused. They moved wrong. Velter felt his pulse slow. What do you mean? They didn't follow trajectories, she said. They didn't accelerate. They just were somewhere else. Turning without engines. Stopping without inertia. Dexlock spoke next. His voice was flat. Controlled. They violated conservation laws, he said. Mass energy calculations do not align with observed behavior. Velter swallowed. What about the ground assault? He asked. Did any ships reach the planet? Yakaran let out a sound that might have been a laugh. It wasn't. We never got close, he said. How far? 10 million kilometers. The number hung in the air. That's impossible, Velter said automatically. They surrounded us, Yakaran whispered. Before we could react. Before we could form attack patterns. He leaned forward suddenly, his eyes locking onto Velter with desperate intensity. Then they spoke. Silence. Spoke. Velter repeated. Yakaran nodded. On every frequency. Every channel. Perfect translation. Perfect clarity. What did they say? Yakaran's voice dropped. They gave us 30 seconds. Velter's breath caught. 30 seconds to surrender, Yakaran said. Or be destroyed. No one moved. No one spoke. What did the Admiral do? Velter asked. Yakaran's expression twisted. He ordered an immediate attack. Of course he did. The hegemony did not surrender. It did not negotiate. It did not retreat. And then? Velter asked. Yakaran closed his eyes. For 6 hours, he said. 6 hours, Ambassador. His voice cracked. A fleet that conquered 47 worlds lasted 6 hours. The weight of that statement pressed down on the room. Crushing. Absolute. Velter could not speak. He could barely think. That's not possible, he said finally, but the words felt empty now. Yakaran opened his eyes again. That's what they wanted us to think, he said. Velter froze. What? That they were primitive, Yakaran said. That they were weak. That they were unprepared. His gaze hardened, fear giving way to something else. Understanding. Ambassador, those weren't prey pretending to fight. He swallowed. They were predators pretending to be prey. The room fell silent. Completely. Because in that moment, everything changed. Not just the battle. Not just the fleet. The entire assumption of what humans were collapsed. No one spoke for several seconds after Yakaran's words settled into the room. Predators pretending to be prey. It was not just a description. It was an admission. And worse than that. It felt correct. Velter forced himself to move, turning from Yakaran toward the others. He needed more. Not fragments. Not fear. Facts. Continue, he said. Telmar's eyes shifted slightly, as if dragging her attention back from something far away. They could have destroyed us immediately, she said. Velter frowned. What do you mean? The first strike, she replied. The satellite grid alone. It disabled nearly 40% of the fleet in the opening seconds. Power cores ruptured. Navigation systems failed. Weapons went offline. Her voice remained flat. Controlled. But they didn't follow through. Velter felt a flicker of confusion. They didn't finish it. No, Telmar said. Dexlock nodded once. They targeted critical systems only, he added. Engines. Weapons. Command relays. They avoided life support where possible. Velter stared at him. They were precise. Perfectly, Dexlock replied. Strike patterns adjusted in real time. They accounted for evasive maneuvers before they occurred. Yakaran let out a quiet, broken breath. They were playing with us, he said. No, Telmar corrected softly. Her eyes finally focused. They were controlling the battle. That distinction mattered. More than Velter wanted it to. They gave us a choice, Yakaran whispered. The words felt wrong in his mouth. Like something that did not belong in war. A choice. Velter repeated. Yakaran nodded slowly. After the first wave, he said. After we lost formation. After the ships started failing. His voice faltered. They spoke again. Velter's chest tightened. What did they say? Yakaron swallowed. They said the same thing, he whispered. Surrender, or be destroyed. And the Admiral? He refused. Of course he did. The hegemony did not yield, did not bow, did not accept defeat. And then? Velter asked. Yakaron's eyes drifted again, unfocused. They ended it, he said. How? Yakaron shook his head weakly. I don't know, he admitted. The ships, they moved closer. Not fast. Not aggressively. Just closer. Telmar's voice picked up the thread. They disabled us one by one, she said. Systematically. No wasted motion. No unnecessary force. Dexlock's tone remained clinical. They allowed escape pods to launch. Velter froze. What? All vessels with catastrophic damage were given a window, Dexlock said. Escape protocols were not interrupted. That makes no sense, Velter said. It does, Telmar said quietly. He turned to her. They didn't want to kill us, she said. The statement felt heavier than anything that had come before. Then what did they want? Velter asked. Telmar did not answer immediately. Instead, she looked toward Yakaron. He spoke. They wanted us to see. Silence. Velter felt something cold settle into his core. See what? He asked. Yakaron met his gaze. What we were up against. The meaning hit harder than any weapon. This was not annihilation. It was demonstration. Dexlock shifted slightly on his platform. Not all escape pods were ignored, he said. Velter turned toward him sharply. Explain. Several pods were intercepted, Dexlock continued. Captured intact. We observed the process before losing visual contact. Captured, Velter said. For what purpose? Dexlock's expression did not change. Unknown. Telmar's voice dropped. I saw them, she said. Velter looked back at her. The humans. She nodded slowly. Yes. The room seemed to shrink. What did they look like? Velter asked. Telmar hesitated. Then, like us. That wasn't what he expected. Clarify. Humanoid, she said. Bipedal. Similar proportions. Similar structure. Velter exhaled slowly. That is consistent with previous survey data. No, Telmar said. Her voice sharpened. Their bodies were familiar. She paused. Their eyes were not. Velter felt a flicker of unease. How? Telmar struggled for the words. Old, she said finally. Ancient. Yakaron nodded weakly. They looked at us like they had seen this before, he added. Like we were predictable. Dexlock's voice cut in. They showed no urgency, he said. No fear. No aggression beyond operational necessity. That is impossible, Velter said automatically. Combat situations generate stress responses. Not in them, Telmar said. They were calm. The word lingered. Calm. In the middle of a fleet engagement. Against a force that had conquered dozens of worlds. They were calm. Yakaron's breathing quickened again. They spoke to us one last time, he said. Velter leaned closer. What did they say? Yakaron's voice dropped to a whisper. They told us to return. Velter frowned. Return? To the Council, Yakaron said. To you. A chill ran through the room. Why? Velter asked. Yakaron swallowed. To deliver a message. Silence. What message? Yakaron closed his eyes. As if the memory itself hurt. Tell them, he whispered, that Earth remembers. The words echoed in the stillness. Velter did not understand. Remembers what? He asked. Yakaron's eyes opened again. Slowly. Everything. The room felt colder. He said something else, Telmar added quietly. Velter turned toward her. What? They said, your kind has been here before. Velter's mind stalled. That is not possible, he said. We have no record. They said, Telmar interrupted, her voice trembling slightly now, that the last time it happened. She stopped. For a moment, she couldn't continue. Velter felt a pressure building in his chest. "Finish it," he said. Telmar forced the words out. None of them returned. Silence. Total. Absolute. The weight of it pressed down on every surface. Every thought. Every assumption. Dexlock spoke again, softer this time. "There is more." Velter turned toward him slowly. "What?" Dexlock's gaze did not waver. "Before we escaped," he said, "their systems accessed our navigation data." Velter's entire body went still. "What do you mean, accessed?" "They downloaded it," Dexlock said. "All of it." The implication hit instantly. Coordinates. Star maps. Military routes. Council locations. Everything. "They know where we are," Velter said. No one corrected him. No one needed to. Yakaron's voice barely carried now. "They don't just know where we are," he whispered. Velter looked at him. "They know what we are," Yakaron said. The distinction mattered. More than anything else. Velter stepped back slowly. For the first time since this began. Since the accusation. Since the silence. Since the missing fleet. He understood. Not fully. Not completely. But enough. This was never about conquest. Never about expansion. Never about a primitive world being claimed. This was something else. Something far older. Far deeper. Far more dangerous. Outside the medical ward, the stars stretched endlessly across the void. Cold. Distant. Unchanging. But now, Velter could not look at them the same way. Because somewhere out there, beyond sight, beyond understanding, something had been watching. For a very long time. And now, it knew they were watching back. They found the file 2 days later. It wasn't hidden in any place that made sense. It wasn't encrypted in a way that suggested secrecy. It wasn't buried beneath layers of defensive code or locked behind access restrictions. It was simply there. Waiting. Chief Technician Cavex was the one who noticed it. Her species possessed a natural affinity for systems analysis. Their neural structures adapted to perceive patterns within complexity that others would overlook. She had been assigned to dissect the recovered escape pod, searching for any trace of the unknown technology that had dismantled the hegemony fleet. She wasn't looking for a message. She was looking for weapons data. Instead, she found something that did not belong. "This shouldn't exist," she said quietly. Kafir looked up from across the analysis chamber. "What did you find?" Cavex didn't answer immediately. Her 6-fingered hands moved across the interface, isolating the anomaly, expanding it, probing its structure. Data streams flickered across multiple displays, shifting and reorganizing themselves in response to her input. "It's embedded in the navigation core," she said finally. "Deep. Beneath standard system architecture." "Malware?" Wexel asked. "No," Cavex said. Her voice tightened slightly. "It's not behaving like an intrusion." Kafir stepped closer. "Then what is it?" Cavex hesitated. "Then, it's behaving like it was always there." That answer did not make sense. And yet, nothing about this situation did anymore. "Open it," Jarn ordered from the central platform. Cavex froze. "Council leader, we don't know what this is. It could be a hostile construct. A signal carrier." "Open it," John repeated. There was no room for refusal. Cavex exhaled slowly, then executed the command. The reaction was immediate. Every display in the chamber flickered, then synchronized. A single image replaced the scattered data streams. Earth. Seen from orbit. But not the Earth they knew. Not the one from outdated surveys. Not the one described as primitive and vulnerable. This Earth was different. Surrounded. Encased. Alive. Orbital structures formed a lattice around the planet. Massive platforms interconnected by streams of light and energy, ships moving between them in patterns too precise to be random. Vessels of impossible design glided through space without visible propulsion, their surfaces reflecting starlight like liquid metal. The chamber fell silent. Then the voice came. Clear. Calm. Perfect. Greetings, Galactic Council. Every head turned instinctively, as if trying to locate the source. There was none. The voice existed within the system itself. Everywhere. My name is David Chun, it continued, and I represent Earth. Kafir felt his scales shift involuntarily. The pronunciation was flawless. Not just the words. The tone. The cadence. The nuance. It was not translated. It was understood. You are undoubtedly confused by recent events, the voice said. The image shifted. Human vessels moved through space, their motion smooth, almost organic. They turned without thrusters. Accelerated without visible force. Allow me to provide context your records lack. Jarn's tendrils curled tightly. Context, she repeated under her breath. For approximately 350 of your standard years, the voice continued, Earth has been aware of galactic civilization. The words struck like impact. Kafir's breath stilled. That is not possible, Kiroth whispered. But the voice did not pause. Your first survey vessel, it said, operated by the Eternal Dominion, entered our system in what you designate as the year 1671. The image changed. Ancient. Fragmented. A vessel descending toward Earth. Different from modern ships. Cruder. But unmistakably alien. They did not come in peace. The tone did not change. Still calm. Still measured. They intended to establish what they termed a population reduction colony. The chamber felt colder. The outcome, the voice said, did not meet their expectations. The image flickered again. Now it showed something else. Not battle. Not clearly. But fragments. Human resistance. Structures that should not have existed at that time. Technology that did not align with recorded history. Their mission failed, the voice continued. Their empire did not recover. Kafir felt something shift deep in his memory. The Eternal Dominion. One of the oldest powers. Gone. Collapsed. Without clear cause. 14 additional species attempted similar actions over the following centuries, the voice said. The projection expanded. Names appeared. Some known. Some ancient. Some missing. They failed as well. Silence filled the chamber. No one spoke. No one questioned. Because the pattern was becoming impossible to ignore. They chose to remain, the voice continued. The image shifted again. Human cities. Modern. Advanced. But within them, other beings. Not human. Integrated. Hidden. Their descendants live among us, the voice said. As do those of others who came before. Kavex's hands trembled slightly. This is impossible, she whispered. Kafir did not respond. Because he was beginning to understand. Some who came to Earth sought cooperation, the voice said. Trade. Knowledge. Exchange. The image shifted again. A different species. Zephyrian. Kafir's own kind. Standing beside humans. Working together. For them, the voice continued, we offered partnership. Kafir's scales paled. 87 years ago, the voice said, your people made contact. Every eye turned to Kafir. He did not move. Those who chose to remain, the voice continued, did so willingly. Those who returned were bound by agreement. Agreement. Not secrecy. Not suppression. Agreement. The distinction mattered. They honored it, the voice said simply. Kavex's voice shook. It's responding to us, she said. This isn't a static recording. Kafir's gaze snapped to the display. What do you mean? It's adjusting, she said. Reacting. The timing. The phrasing. The voice continued. This message was designed to activate upon discovery by council-level analysis. A chill moved through the room. We anticipated that, eventually, someone would violate the accords. The image shifted again. Now it showed the hegemony fleet, entering the Sol system, exactly as the earlier projections had shown. We prepared for that possibility. The ships moved. Then, the moment of engagement. The satellite grid activating. Human vessels emerging. The same patterns described by the survivors. Precise. Controlled. Overwhelming. We did not initiate this conflict, the voice said. We responded. Kafir's voice cracked slightly. You destroyed 200 ships. We disabled them, the voice corrected calmly. Destruction was not required. The image zoomed in. Escape pods launching. Allowed. Untouched. Approximately 97% of personnel survived initial engagement, the voice continued. Those not accounted for are currently under observation. Observation. Not imprisonment. Not execution. Observation. Our technology, the voice said, exceeds current council capabilities by approximately 4 centuries. No one reacted, because there was nothing left to say. The difference was no longer theoretical. It was absolute. We have remained in isolation, the voice continued, to evaluate the nature of galactic civilization. The image shifted again. Now it showed something impossible. Council chambers. Past sessions. Viewed from angles that should not exist. Meetings. Conflicts. Decisions. All observed. All recorded. For 3.5 centuries, the voice said, we have watched. The weight of those words settled slowly. Heard your communications, it continued. Studied your languages. Analyzed your conflicts. Measured your values. Kirath leaned back slightly. You were judging us, she said under her breath. The voice answered. Yes. No hesitation. No apology. Just truth. We sought to determine whether galactic civilization was worthy of participation. The chamber felt smaller, tighter, as if the walls themselves were closing in. The results, the voice said, are mixed. The image displayed scenes, peaceful alliances, shared knowledge, or exploitation. Entire species reduced to resources. The hegemony, the voice said, represents one outcome. Velter did not look away. The Zephyrian Empire, it continued, represents another. Kafir felt the weight of that comparison. Most species, the voice said, exist between these extremes. The image faded, returning to Earth. Bright. Alive. Untouched. The Terran Accords were not created to protect us, the voice said. No one moved. They were created because certain civilizations remembered their encounters with humanity and chose caution. Nexvera's eyes did not blink. The attack on Earth has altered our position, the voice continued. Isolation is no longer viable. The image shifted one final time. A single vessel. Silver. Smooth. Perfect. Moving toward the council station. This message will conclude upon arrival of our diplomatic representative, the voice said. Kafir's breath caught. Arrival, he repeated. Estimated time, Kavek said, her hands moving rapidly across the interface, 6 hours. The voice continued. We request full council assembly. It paused. Just long enough. We do not come as supplicants. The words carried weight. Authority. Finality. We come as participants. The image dimmed, but the voice remained. One question remains. Silence. Total. Absolute. Will this transition be cooperative? A pause. Or will it be necessary? The display went dark. The chamber did not move, did not breathe, did not speak, because for the first time in galactic history, they were no longer the ones asking questions. They were the ones being judged. The countdown began immediately. No one announced it. No formal declaration was made. But every system in the council station synchronized to the same clock, every display quietly marking the passage of time toward a single, unavoidable moment. 6 hours. 5 hours. 47 minutes. 5 hours. 12 minutes. The chamber remained occupied the entire time. No delegation left. No representative disengaged. Even those who preferred remote projection had chosen physical presence. For once, Distance felt like vulnerability rather than convenience. John remained at the center dais, her tendrils held in a rigid configuration that suggested control, but only just. "Status," she said. Yiklin responded immediately. "No confirmed detection of inbound vessels within standard sensor range." Kafir frowned. "That is not possible," he said. "The message clearly indicated." "It indicated arrival," Nexvera said softly. She had not moved from her position. Not once. It did not specify detection. That distinction settled heavily over the room. Kirath leaned forward. "Expand the sensor net," she ordered. "Maximum resolution. Gravitational distortions, subspace fluctuations, neutrino spikes, anything that deviates from baseline." Yiklin's eye stalks flared outward, processing the command across multiple layers. Scanning. Seconds passed. Then minutes. Nothing. The void around the station remained unchanged. Empty. Silent. Normal. Too normal. Velter stood near the observation window, his gaze fixed on the distant stars. He had not spoken since the message ended. His posture was still, but not calm. It was the stillness of something waiting for impact. "They are already here," he said quietly. No one responded. But no one dismissed it either. 4 hours, 21 minutes. 3 hours, 9 minutes. 2 hours. The tension did not rise in bursts. It accumulated. Slowly. Relentlessly. Every second that passed without detection made the silence feel less like absence, and more like concealment. "Nothing," Yiklin said again. "No inbound signatures. No anomalies." Karatha's voice tightened. "That is not possible. It is what the data indicates." "Then the data is incomplete," she snapped. Nexvera tilted her head slightly. "Or we are." That ended the argument, because it was the only explanation that fit. 1 hour, 12 minutes. The chamber lights dimmed slightly as power systems adjusted to heightened operational readiness. Defensive grids activated in the background, unseen but fully engaged. It was a reflex, a habit, and everyone in the room knew. It would not matter. 30 minutes. 20. 10. No one spoke now. Even the smallest sounds felt intrusive. 5 minutes. Velter's reflection stared back at him in the observation glass. Dark. Uneven. Unfamiliar. He did not recognize the expression on his own face. 3 minutes. Yiklin's voice came, quieter than before. Still no contact. 2 minutes. 1. The final seconds passed without announcement. Without warning. Without anything at all. And then, the stars shifted. Not visibly. Not dramatically. But something changed. A distortion. Subtle. Precise. As if space itself had been adjusted by an unseen hand. "There," Yiklin said. The projection snapped to focus. Coordinates locked. A single point. Less than 100 meters from the station's primary docking ring. No approach vector. No arrival trajectory. No transitional signature. It was simply there. The chamber froze. Because every species present understood what that meant. That was not faster-than-light travel as they knew it. That was not navigation. That was not even movement. That was placement. Deliberate. Exact. Perfect. The image resolved. A vessel, if it could be called that. It had no visible seams. No engine ports. No weapon arrays. No structural elements that aligned with known engineering principles. Its surface flowed like liquid metal, reflecting the station lights in smooth, continuous patterns. It was neither angular nor curved, but something in between, geometry that did not quite obey expectation. "It's beautiful," Kirath whispered. The word felt wrong, but also accurate. Velter did not see beauty. He saw control. Absolute. Effortless control. "How is it maintaining position?" Jarn asked. Yiklin's response came immediately. "No detectable propulsion. Gravitational anchoring. Negative. External stabilization fields. None detected." Silence. Then how? It simply is, Nexvera said. No one argued, because there was nothing else to say. The station's communication system activated. Not triggered. Not requested. Activated. Council Station Control, the voice said. The same voice. Measured. Unchanged. This is Earth Diplomatic Vessel Harmony. The name settled into the chamber. Simple. Unassuming. Terrifying. Requesting permission to dock. Jarn did not hesitate. Permission granted, she said. Her voice was steady. But only just. Welcome to Council Space. The vessel moved. Not with thrust. Not with acceleration. It flowed. Like liquid adjusting to a container. Its structure shifted subtly, aligning with the docking port, forming a perfect seal without mechanical assistance. No clamps. No alignment corrections. No delay. Docking complete, Yiklin said. But it didn't feel like docking. It felt like something had chosen to connect. The chamber doors remained closed. No one moved to greet the arrival. No one issued further instructions. They waited. Because instinct told them. This was not something to rush. Minutes passed. 5, 10, 20. Then the inner corridor sensors activated. Movement detected, Yiklin said. All systems reading clear. No weapons. No environmental hazards. The chamber doors opened. Slowly. Deliberately. Every representative turned. Every gaze fixed on the entrance. Expecting something. Something massive. Something armored. Something that matched the power they had just witnessed. What entered instead was a human. Average height. Average build. Dark skin. Graying hair at the edges. No armor. No visible technology. Simple clothing, woven from natural fibers. He walked forward without hesitation. Without escort. Without acknowledgement of the tension filling the room. His eyes moved across the chamber, taking everything in. Not quickly. Not nervously. But completely. When he reached the center, he stopped. And for the first time, he spoke. "My name is Marcus Washington," he said. His voice carried. Not through amplification. Not through translation. But through presence. "I represent Earth." No one responded. No one could. Because nothing about this matched expectation. The most advanced civilization they had ever encountered had sent one man. Alone. Unarmed. And somehow, that was more unsettling than a fleet. Jarn found her voice first. "Ambassador Washington," she said carefully, "you are welcomed." Marcus nodded once. "Thank you." His gaze shifted, moving from one representative to another. Lingering. Assessing. Understanding. "We are aware of the incident involving the hegemony fleet," Jarn continued. Marcus's expression did not change. "Yes," he said. "That situation has been addressed." The understatement was deliberate. Velter stepped forward. He could not remain silent any longer. "On behalf of the hegemony," he said, his voice strained but controlled, "I offer formal apology for the unauthorized action taken against your world." Marcus turned to him. And for a moment, something in his eyes shifted. Not anger. Not hostility. Something else. Recognition. "Your apology is noted," Marcus said. A pause. Then, "But it is insufficient." The words landed without force. But they carried weight. The kind that did not need volume to be felt. Velter's posture tightened. The decision was made without council authorization. "The decision," Marcus interrupted calmly, "was made with intent." Silence. "You believed Earth to be weak," he continued. "You believed our people to be vulnerable. You believed conquest would be simple." Each statement was precise. Accurate. Unavoidable. "Those beliefs," Marcus said, "led you to send 200 warships to subjugate 8 billion individuals." The chamber did not move. Did not breathe. "Your misunderstanding of our capabilities," he added, "does not excuse your intention." Velter had no response. For the first time in his life, he had none. Marcus turned away from him. Back toward the center. Back toward the council. For 3.5 centuries, he said, we have observed this body. The shift was immediate. This was no longer about one fleet. This was about everything. We have seen cooperation, Marcus continued. We have seen progress. We have seen species rise beyond conflict. A pause. Then, we have also seen enslavement, exploitation, systematic destruction of those deemed inconvenient. No one spoke, because no one could deny it. Karath leaned forward slightly. If you have been watching, she said, why remain hidden? Marcus looked at her. Because we hoped you would improve, he said. The honesty of it was worse than accusation. We hoped, he continued, that given time, galactic civilization would evolve toward stability without external intervention. His gaze moved again. Across the chamber. Across every species. That hope, he said quietly, has proven incomplete. Silence followed. Deep, heavy, final. Because now, the truth was undeniable. They had not just encountered a new power. They had been evaluated by it. 4 centuries. And they had not passed. No one spoke. Not because they were unsure what to say, but because, for the first time in the history of the Galactic Council, no one present held the authority to respond. Marcus Washington stood alone at the center of the chamber, unarmed, unguarded, and completely in control. It did not come from posture. It did not come from volume. It came from certainty. We did not seek this moment, he said. His voice was calm, measured, as if he were explaining something simple rather than reshaping the structure of galactic power. For centuries, we remained in isolation, he continued. Not out of fear, but out of choice. His gaze moved slowly across the chamber. We observed, he said. We learned. We waited. A pause. We gave this galaxy time to define itself. Karath felt her throat tighten slightly. And what did you conclude? She asked. Marcus looked at her. For a moment, there was something almost human in his expression. Regret. Potential, he said. Then it was gone. Compromised by habit. Silence. You built systems of cooperation, Marcus continued, but allowed systems of exploitation to coexist alongside them. Images from the earlier transmission flickered back into memory. Enslaved worlds. Extracted resources. Species erased because they were inconvenient. You created laws, Marcus said, but enforced them selectively. Jarn's tendrils shifted. She did not interrupt, because she could not. You established order, Marcus continued, but permitted those with sufficient power to operate outside of it. His gaze flicked, briefly, toward Velter. The implication was clear. Velter did not move. From our perspective, Marcus said, this is not stability. A pause. It is delay. The word landed harder than any accusation, because it reframed everything. Not progress. Not evolution. Delay. Karath leaned forward. You judged us, she said. Marcus nodded. Yes. By what standard? Marcus did not hesitate. By the same one we apply to ourselves. That answer carried weight, because it was not external, not imposed. It was internal. You intervened, Wexel said, his mandibles clicking softly. You destroyed a fleet. Marcus's gaze shifted. We defended our world, he corrected. 200 warships, Wexel pressed. Annihilated. Marcus shook his head slightly. Disabled, he said. Not annihilated. The distinction was deliberate. Your personnel were given opportunity to evacuate, he continued. Escape vectors were left unobstructed. Life support systems were not targeted unless necessary. Telmar's words echoed in the room. They didn't want to kill us. They were shown mercy, Marcus said. The word hung there. Heavy. Uncomfortable. Because it inverted the expected hierarchy. The conquerors had been spared. Not by weakness, but by choice. Velter finally found his voice. You call that mercy, he said, his tone tight. You dismantled our fleet. Marcus turned to him, and for the first time, there was something colder in his expression. You attempted to enslave our species, he said. The words were not raised, not sharpened. They did not need to be. You mobilized 200 warships, Marcus continued. You prepared to subjugate 8 billion individuals. You planned to dismantle our civilization for resources. Each statement landed with surgical precision. And you questioned the scale of our response? Velter had no answer. Again, Marcus held his gaze for a moment longer, then turned away. The hegemony is not unique, he said to the chamber. It is an extreme example of a broader pattern. Kirath exhaled slowly. And what happens now? She asked. Marcus stepped forward slightly. Not aggressively, but with intent. Now, he said, we establish boundaries. The word shifted the room. From reflection to consequence. The individuals responsible for authorizing the attack on Earth, Marcus continued, will surrender themselves for trial. Velter's head snapped up. That is not acceptable, he said immediately. Marcus looked at him. Acceptance is not required, he replied. The temperature of the room dropped. You are asking us to hand over our leadership, Velter said. I am informing you, Marcus corrected. Silence. Jarn's voice cut in, careful, controlled. Ambassador Washington, she said, the Council has procedures for addressing violations of interstellar law. And those procedures, Marcus interrupted calmly, have failed. The words landed harder than anything before. Because they were not directed at one species. They were directed at all of them. You allowed this to happen, Marcus said. No accusation. Just fact. You created the framework in which this decision was possible. Jarn did not respond. She could not. Earth will not operate within a system that permits unprovoked planetary assault as a recoverable error, Marcus continued. The phrasing was deliberate. Recoverable error. As if entire species had been reduced to miscalculations. Kirath leaned forward again. If we agree, she said carefully, what does Earth intend to do? Marcus turned to her. His expression softened slightly. Not warmth, but something closer to it. Partner, he said. The word felt unexpected. We are not here to conquer, Marcus continued. We are here to correct. Wexel's mandibles clicked. And if we refuse? Marcus paused. Not long. Just enough. Then you will discover, he said quietly, that our restraint has limits. No threat. No raised voice. Just certainty. And somehow, that was worse. Kafir stepped forward. You've already acted, he said. The hegemony fleet is gone. Their systems compromised. Marcus nodded. Yes. Kafir's eyes narrowed. What else have you done? A small silence followed. Then Marcus answered. 3 hours ago, he said, Earth vessels arrived at every major hegemony military installation. Velter froze. Arrived, he repeated. Yes. How? Marcus did not answer that. They are currently inactive, he continued. Disabled. Not destroyed. The distinction again. Always the distinction. You no longer possess the capacity to wage large-scale war, Marcus said. The chamber erupted. Voices overlapped. Protests. Shock. Disbelief. That is an act of war. You cannot just. This violates. Marcus did not react. He simply waited. And slowly, the noise died. Because outrage required leverage. And no one in that room was certain they still had any. This is not conquest, Marcus said when silence returned. It is prevention. Kirath stared at him. You're forcing change. Yes. No hesitation. No denial. We are establishing oversight, Marcus continued. A system in which no species can unilaterally decide the fate of another. Jarn's tendrils shifted. And Earth enforces this system? Yes. The simplicity of the answer was overwhelming. And if we accept, she asked. Marcus's expression shifted again. This time, There was something almost hopeful. Then we build something better, he said. The chamber stilled. Earth will share its technology, Marcus continued. Medical systems capable of eliminating disease. Energy frameworks that remove scarcity. Transit systems that reduce interstellar distance to irrelevance. The scale of it was beyond comprehension. We will assist in restructuring governance, he said. Conflict mediation. Resource distribution. Development protection. Kafir felt his breath catch. You're offering everything, he said. Marcus shook his head slightly. We're offering a chance, he corrected. A pause. For all of you. The room fell silent again. Not from fear this time, but from the weight of what was being placed in front of them. Velter spoke. His voice quieter now. Different. And if we resist? Marcus looked at him. And this time, there was no softness at all. Then you will learn, he said, that humanity's greatest strength has never been its technology. A pause. The kind that stretched. That settled. That strength, Marcus continued, is our refusal to accept injustice. The words did not rise. They did not need to. Regardless of cost. Silence. Absolute. Because in that moment, every species in the chamber understood. This was not negotiation. Not in the way they were used to. This was a turning point. A line. And it had already been crossed. No one tried to reclaim control. Not after that. Not after the realization had fully settled into the chamber that the balance they had relied on for centuries had already shifted, and not in their favor. Marcus Washington stood where he had begun, but the room around him had changed. Not physically, but in weight, in meaning, in ownership. For clarity, he said, his voice steady, this is not a request for submission. That word mattered. It cut away the last illusion that this was conquest disguised as diplomacy. This is a transition, he continued. One that was delayed for as long as possible. Jarn's tendrils moved slightly. Carefully. Measured. And if we accept this transition, she asked, what becomes of the council? Marcus looked at her. It remains, he said. But it evolves. A pause. Earth will hold a permanent seat, he added. With veto authority over any military action that affects developing or non-combatant civilizations. The chamber absorbed that. Slowly. A permanent power. A final authority. Not absolute control. But close enough that the difference would matter very little in practice. And governance? Kiroth asked. Marcus nodded once. Restructured, he said. Decision frameworks adjusted to remove unilateral military action. Enforcement mechanisms established across all member species. Wexel's mandibles clicked softly. And enforcement is yours. Yes. No hesitation. No negotiation. The honesty of it made resistance feel almost pointless. Velter remained standing, though the rigid certainty that once defined him was gone. You are dismantling everything we built, he said. Marcus met his gaze. No, he said. We are removing what should not have been built in the first place. The words did not strike like an attack. They settled like truth. Unwelcome, but undeniable. You conquered, Marcus continued. You expanded. You established dominance where you could. A brief silence. That era ends now. No one argued. Because no one could argue from a position of strength anymore. Jarn shifted slightly forward. There will be resistance, she said. Yes, Marcus replied. Some species will not accept this. I know. And if they act against you? Marcus paused. Just long enough for the weight of the answer to build. Then we will respond, he said. Not aggressively. Not emotionally. Just, certainly. Kafir stepped forward, his scales still pale. You said you observed us for centuries, he said. Why reveal yourselves now? Why not continue watching? Marcus looked at him. Because the variable changed, he said. Kafir frowned slightly. What variable? Marcus's gaze shifted, just briefly, toward Velter. The moment your fleet entered our system with the intent to enslave our species, he said, the experiment ended. Experiment. The word lingered. Uncomfortable. Revealing. For 3.5 centuries, Marcus continued, we allowed galactic civilization to develop without interference. His voice did not rise, but it carried. We observed your progress, your conflicts, your capacity for growth. A pause. We hoped intervention would not be necessary. Kiratha's voice came softer now. And now? Marcus held her gaze. Now it is. Silence followed. Not the tense silence of earlier. Not the fearful silence of uncertainty. This was something else. Acceptance. Or something very close to it. Because every representative in that chamber understood the same thing at the same time. There was no version of this where humanity disappeared again. No version where this moment could be undone. No version where the old balance returned. Velter spoke again. Quieter. Those responsible for the attack, he said, you expect them to surrender. Yes. And if they refuse? Marcus did not hesitate. Then we will remove them ourselves. The simplicity of the statement made it absolute. John exhaled slowly. Her tendrils lowered. For the first time since this began, her posture shifted, not in defeat, but in decision. You are asking the Council to accept a new order, she said. Yes. And you are giving us time to decide. 72 hours, Marcus said. The number echoed. Not long. Not short. Enough to deliberate. Not enough to delay. What happens after that? Kirath asked. Marcus turned slightly, his gaze moving toward the chamber doors. After that, he said, the direction will be determined by your response. A pause. Cooperation, he added, or correction. The distinction was clear. Painfully clear. Marcus took a step back. Then another. He had said everything he intended to say. Everything that needed to be said. We will remain on the station during this period, he said. To answer questions. To clarify terms. He stopped at the threshold. Turned once more. This is not the end of your authority, he said. A pause. It is the beginning of your accountability. Then he left. The doors closed behind him without sound. The chamber remained. Full. Silent. Unmoving. No one spoke. Not immediately. Because there was nothing left to debate. Only something to decide. Jarn slowly rose. Her tendrils extended outward, not in command, but in acknowledgement. The Council will convene continuously for the duration of the 72-hour window, she said. Her voice was steady again. Not because the situation had improved, but because it had become clear. All proposals, she continued, all objections, all strategies will be presented. A pause. Nothing will be dismissed. Kirath leaned back slightly, her gaze distant. We are no longer the highest authority in this galaxy, she said quietly. Wexel did not respond. Kafir did not respond. Even Velter said nothing. Because, for once, there was no argument to be made. Outside the chamber, beyond the reinforced transparent alloy of the station's observation ring, space stretched endlessly. Stars burned in silent patterns. Unchanged. Unmoved. As they always had. But now, those stars no longer belonged solely to the civilizations that had claimed them. Because somewhere among them, hidden for centuries, watching, waiting, humanity had stepped forward. Not as a new species entering the galaxy. Not as a rising power seeking recognition. But as something else entirely. Something that had already decided its place. The galaxy had not discovered humanity. Humanity had allowed the galaxy to discover it. And now, there was no going back. Only forward. Under a sky that suddenly felt a lot less empty. And a lot less forgiving.